Hey everybody, thought I'd shoot a little midweek update. I have been playing with the piping a little bit, and I'll show in more detail in a second, but I wanted to show this. So far, I've obviously just got one side done, and there is a little clearance in between. It's very difficult to tell with the angles, and there we go. You can see that there's a little bit of clearance there between the petticoat and the steam tube, and that's exactly what I'm shooting for. I did not want the tubes to chafe against the petticoat. So I'll show more. Let me take the top off here. There we go. I can show you more about what I've got at this point. Now, if you've been following along, you know what I originally intended to do was do nothing but bends with my bending tool, and I did several little test pieces. I'll show you my guide in a few minutes here, but I took a piece of thick wire, and it's the hard wire, not the braided kind, and made a little template for it in the pattern and the shape that I wanted, and the dimensions, the size and length. I tried to bend that, and I did a fair estimate or a fair duplication of it, but in the final tweaks, this bend here is just so tight that I'd get it halfway bent around the bending tool, and then I'd try to tweak it in a little bit, and the pipe would it wouldn't really collapse all the way, but you could tell it was getting pinched. So I changed my plan a little bit, and I did a flare end here and used this bend. It's probably 22 degrees or so, using the bending tool, and then I cut it off. And as you can see, I'm using one of those 90-degree elbows, and then another straight piece, and that's flared and connected to the flare fitting on the other side. And also, just like I was talking about when I use these pipe threaded pieces here, rather than silver soldering them in and having a straight out angle, it's nice that with the pipe thread I was able to just move it a few degrees, and that gives it a little angle, which gives it the extra clearance over the petticoat that I showed at the beginning of the video. So here I'll come over and show some of the tools involved. This is the bending tool that I'm using. I have to use the big one for the 5/16 inch pipe, and as you can see, the radius, it's not tiny, but it's a little bit too big anyway. Here's the flaring tool that I'm using, the same kind of thing you would use for brake tools, or flaring for brake lines, pipe cutting. You can see several of the pieces. This is the first flare I did. It's not good. So there's a few scrap pieces that have ended up here. And what else did I want to show you? Here's another. I think this is one of my original attempts that I cut off some of the usable stuff from it rather. And this is the template, the pattern that I had created. And that's how you see the mark here is where the copper needed to be a little bit longer than that in order to have enough to flare. And then having the hard wire, it gives you a real good way to estimate the length and the where the bends need to be. So now I'll make up a template for the opposite side, and now that I've got the general idea, I'll know what I can flare and what I can't. So I'll make up one for the opposite side, just like the one for the right hand side. So that's a quick glimpse at some of the tools and some of the techniques and what I've got so far. If you're wondering, obviously I'm going to have to silver solder the elbow in place, and Trainman Dave from Trainman from New Jersey did an excellent video he posted several years ago, I think, that's about silver soldering, but he demonstrates his technique. He actually silver solders in place a couple of front steam lines like this on a different type locomotive, but it's a good look at how you do that. And I'll have to prepare the area. Obviously I'll probably put some aluminum foil and stuff in place, but what I've done, you see these marks here, I've made where the elbow needs to be on the tube, and I did some alignment lines, and even I put an A and a B on here so that if it's a while before I come back and silver solder this, I'll have everything lined up just like I want it to be or just like it is now. Obviously when you put flux on and silver solder, stuff moves around a little bit, so we'll have to take that into consideration, but this should help me get it aligned pretty well. So that's tonight's update. I hope that's useful, and I will keep you posted.